So I watched The Sopranos for a second time a few months back. It took a good 4 months to watch. I hadn't watched it since the 2000s, and I did another podcast episode on this, more on The Sopranos, but I went back and checked out David Chase's just thoughts on writing The Sopranos recently. She's the showrunner for it. And he had a really interesting story because he made The Sopranos in his mid-50s. He'd been in TV his whole life, and when really he wanted just to be writing movies, and he couldn't break out, and he started to get just really sick of writing TV, and by the time he was writing Sopranos, he was just like, fuck this shit, like, just here's whatever. And that's almost the energy and reason why The Sopranos just does whatever it wants, and explores darkness so freely, and it's regarded by most polls as the number one TV show of all time. It's because David Chase genuinely just didn't give a shit. He'd reached the end of his tether. He didn't want to write TV. And he didn't care for it. He knew he's like in his mid-50s. He doesn't have heaps of time left to be following his dreams. I don't know, if he jumped from movies in his mid-50s, he could probably do 2 or 3 or some shit like that. I don't know. But it's the point where he just genuinely didn't give a shit. He wrote the best TV show of all time. And it's because he'd been beaten down and worn out by tired formulas and tropes, and he just got sick of it. And it came as a shock to him. He said he didn't know that it would be how well it would be received. And the weird thing is, I listened to hours of him talking with different podcasts, and he's still talking to people like, did you see it in a cinema? Did you see it in the movies? It's like he's still not content that he'd written this all-time great TV show, because his goal really is movies, and so he's genuinely not happy. He's still trying to. Like, he's made a few movies since the 2000s that hasn't blown anyone away, really, I guess, from the reviews that I've seen of it and all that sort of stuff. But I love that his success appeared in a form that he wasn't expecting. And I feel like when you don't give a shit, that's what happens. Success turns up in a way that you're not expecting, and you can feel that he still can't accept that his success has turned up in the form of a TV show. He sort of doesn't see it as art or how beautiful it is, because he's still talking to people on all these podcasts, like worshipping movies and the movie formula. I guess because he's in his 70s now, that he grew up in a time where movies were worshipped, and that was the thing that people chased. They saw that as the most beautiful sort of art form for a writer, I guess, at the time. But he still can't sort of get over that, and for technology and the art form to move into TV, and him being the initial pioneer of, well, I guess David Lynch sort of was in the early 90s, sort of turned it into a pioneer, but David Chase equally so was. And that makes me think that now, like, people probably worship wanting to be published, become a showrunner for a TV show, now that it's been a big thing for the last 20 years since he kind of started it, when really now where it's going is computer games or video games, and they're the things that are the new kind of beautiful art form that probably a lot of artists might not, like, as David Chase poo-pooed TV, a lot of artists who are probably in their 40s, 50s, 60s will poo-poo video games, when that's really where the audience is really appreciative of this new beautiful art form. I find that really interesting. I love video games. I was lucky to be sort of raised on them in the 80s and the early 90s, a lot of adventure games. And I remember thinking to myself as a kid, gee, I hope I don't get to my dad's age, at the age of 50, which I nearly am now, and don't like video games. And I still fucking love them. I sort of feel guilty. Like, part of me feels like, oh shit, I'm just a 14-year-old boy in a 48-year-old man's body loving video games. But some of the games I played this year are more beautiful and moving than the 25 books that I read, like Alan Wake 2. And going back to David Lynch and Twin Peaks for a second, he started off as an artist, and how he got into film and television and all that sort of stuff was he was painting, because he was an art student, a visual art student. And he says that how he saw something move in his painting, just like the wind had blown through and a shadow fell across it temporarily or something, and that made his hair stand on end, and he thought, wow, a moving painting. And so then he started making short films and little animations, and then that sort of naturally progressed to weird films, to Hollywood films, then to the TV show Twin Peaks, which was kind of groundbreaking and probably paved the way a little bit for the Sopranos. But Sopranos was equally as original and groundbreaking in its own way 10 years later. But I love how David Lynch he talks about ideas, and he has this respect for them, where he'll go, here's an idea. It might be a film idea, it might be a music idea, it might be a painting idea, but then he won't retrofit an idea. The idea tells you, he says that the idea tells him what it's supposed to be and what form how it should take place. So he's got this tremendous respect for ideas, whereas I guess TV writers are a bit more set. They're a bit more set on exactly how the idea should go. But then there's another thought where if an idea is good enough, it can really just translate across into any form, which I sort of have respect for as well. And I guess the one of the most traditional and oldest technology is a book, and these days anyone can write a book. And I kind of love the idea as a challenge to really try and do my best with books, because anyone can do it. There's no hurdle or sort of bar, because as soon as there's a video game involved or making a movie, it automatically excludes, is that the word? Excludes a lot of people, because they'll be too lazy to learn how to edit, do the film, learn how to put the sound to it, learn how to make the actors. There's so many parts to it that automatically you're going to get rid of a lot of people just because they don't have the drive for it. So books is one of the toughest and hardest I guess mediums for an idea to exist, because everyone can do it and it's so easy, and anyone, so it's just flooded. So to write an exceptional book, I find that sort of a weird lifelong challenge. I don't think I've got there yet, but I found, like, if you can, it's the highest difficulty level medium, I think, to be able to write something that's fully charged and can really punch through that weird fourth wall. But yeah, I'm sort of rambling on and going around in circles. But yeah, going back to the start, which is David Chase getting to the point of just not caring anymore, and that just gave him such an incredible creative breakthrough that he wasn't expecting, because he'd had enough, he'd given up. And that's when all the doors, life said to him, okay, we've put you through the ringer, we'll open the doors for you now, here you go, have what you want. And it just happened for him. And I love that story of that genuinely not caring doesn't come, it's not a choice, it's not something you can learn how to do, it's not a life hack that you can learn in a book like The Subtle Art of Giving a Fuck. It comes from life beating you down relentlessly to the point you just give up, and that's when ideas and creativity can kind of just explode.